Hey, welcome back. Jason here from Unity3D.College. It's time to pick up on our third-person shooter and start hooking up an enemy, something that we can actually kill and have it fight back. I think right now we've got it set up so that we can shoot a little capsule. That's kind of an enemy, so I can turn and run over here, keep clicking on him. Enough times I've got my audio muted on the gunshots, but eventually he dies. So click and kill him, and lots of exciting stuff, right? I think it's kind of dull though, so let's get in a real enemy character, have him start animating, have him walk over, start shooting back at us, and add a little bit of a challenge. So the first thing I need to do is just find a character, and I'm using one of the Toon Soldier characters, so I think I'm just going to find something that kind of matches that. Something in the same theme. I'll go with a free one, but there are some really good ones by the same guy, so if you're interested in buying a model or something or a pack, I'd recommend grabbing some of his. They look pretty good and they really match the theme here. So I'm going to import in this Toon Soldier, the World War II guy, and we'll just use him as our enemy. He looks different enough from our player's character. Now it's imported. Let's see, where's that at? Right here, Toon Soldiers WW2 demo. And I'm just going to grab this model, and we've already got the enemy right here. So we've got this enemy with the capsule. Capsule's a child. I'm just going to take the model right here, drop it onto the enemy, so it becomes a child. It should be zeroed out. If you grabbed a different model, just right click on the transform and hit reset. Make sure the position's all zeroed and centered in the right rotation. Sometimes these things are put in a little bit weird, in the asset pack, and they're offset. So just want to make sure that's zeroed out. Now I can delete that capsule, and I've got, a slightly better character already, right? If I hit play, I can at least shoot this guy in the back. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So now I can click on him a couple times and shoot him in the back, and he should die. Yep, there we go. So this is one of the benefits, again, of separating out our visual effects or our visual part of our characters and other things from the actual implementation. So our health is all on this enemy, the visual part's all a child. We can totally swap that out without anything really breaking. But I want to make this guy become aggro, start sensing players, and then move towards them. So I'm going to start here just by adding in another collider. Let's add a sphere collider. What I want to do is set up an aggro radius, and I'm just going to use a sphere collider with a trigger. Then when the player enters that, it'll count it as, the trigger enter will fire, he'll be marked as aggro, and then go into some aggro state where he starts actually trying to attack. So I've got the collider added. I want to check the is trigger box, otherwise things are going to get really weird really fast. And then just crank up the radius, I don't know, maybe 15. Seems like a good range for this right now. Just get it big enough that it can detect it when I walk in, but it's not so big that when I start, it's in there. Otherwise, not super easy to test, right? I want to be able to walk just a little bit before aggroing them. All right, let's see. Save that. And then I want to create a new script. So I want to create some sort of a script that manages handling his aggro, just checks for players entering, and then sends off an event to other scripts to tell them, hey, we're aggro and we're ready to fight. So I'm going to go into the scripts folder and create a new C# script. And what do I want to name this thing? I think I'll name it aggro detection. I'll probably end up renaming it later. I didn't get it named in time, so let's fix it here. The name of the class always has to match the name of the file, or else things just aren't going to work. Now save and clean up my formatting with Control-K, Control-D. And let me think for just a moment. So for aggro detection, we need on trigger enter, and I think that's about it. So we can get rid of start and update, delete both of those, and then just go over here and say on trigger enter right there. Hit enter, let it auto create it. And then I want to check when the trigger enter fires what the collider is and if it has a player on it, basically. So I'm going to do something like this. Var player equals other.collider. The collider is, or not collider, it's other dot get component. That's right, collider's deprecated. I always do that. So other.get component, and here we have a player movement script on our player. So for now, I'm just going to use that. We'll see if we can get the player movement, and if we do, then we'll count that as being aggroed. Otherwise, we're going to ignore it. So to do that, we just check to see if player is not equal to null. Then we know we want to be aggro. So this again is just checking to see if there's a player movement component on the thing that triggered our on trigger enter, and if it's not null, so there is one, then we want to do something. I think the first thing we want to do is, well, let's just debug log and line real quick, and just call this aggroed. So now we'll have a debug entry when we become aggro. And just try that out real quick. We should be able to walk in, see a log right here appear saying, hey, we're aggro. It's not going to actually aggro or do anything, but we'll get the log entry, right? Oh, we did not get a log entry. Let's take a look at the enemy again. Ah, I did what I always do. Created a script and forgot to attach it. So let's add that aggro detection script to the enemy. Try one more time. And run over here. And we got a log entry. I can see it right there. Aggroed. Cool. And if I walk out and then let's run out and run back in, I should get the log entry again. There we go. So that's good. Now, the first thing I want to make this guy do before he starts fighting and everything else is just turn and face and kind of run towards the player. So to do that, we're going to use the built-in navigation system. So just select the enemy and we'll just add a nav mesh agent. Now there is a new navigation system that adds a little bit more. I don't think we need it for this though, so I'm just gonna stick with the built-in stuff, and the new stuff I think is just gonna eventually all be built into the engine anyway. Let's see, we've got a nav mesh agent set up or added, and I want to, well, actually before I play with the stopping distance, let's bake a nav mesh. So to make this guy actually navigate, we need to select our environment, and we don't really need everything here, but I'm just going to select it all because it doesn't make a big difference. And then on this little static dropdown, oh, let's pull this over to the side. You can check navigation static and just hit yes, change children. And you get that little dash there just meaning that something is selected here, but it's just navigation static is selected for all of our objects. What that does is make it so when we go to the navigation window, which I have the tab right here, but you just go to window, and then navigation, never find these, there it is. It just opens that tab up, and then I can go to this little bake mini tab, and with everything that's marked as navigation static, it'll all be calculated in and used for generating a nav mesh. So now I can hit generate or bake, and you'll see that I got nav meshes, this blue area everywhere. And I did get it on top of some of these buildings, kind of a downside of selecting those buildings, but it doesn't matter because our players and characters aren't getting up there anyway. It's not going to make a bit of difference here. What this area is doing though is just showing where the AI agents or the nav mesh agents can walk. So they can walk in any of these blue areas. Now if they want to go up here, they kind of got to go up and around, and that's just because of the slope right here on these meshes on the stairs. That's kind of a weird one though. But whatever. I think it's good enough. The character should be able to run all the way down here and all the way over to here. And right now he's just going to come towards the player a little bit. So I'm going to save my scene. Just save off that nav mesh generation. And then let's go back into our aggro detection script. And just temporarily, I'm just going to add in a call to tell the character to go chase after the player, and then we'll move that out of here. So on trigger enter hits, we find a player. If there is a player, we're going to say get component nav mesh agent, and I'll just hit control period and add the using statement for that. I need that unity engine.ai for nav mesh agent, and we got to put the parentheses, and then we call set destination, and we'll just give it player.transform.position. So this is just going to tell the character to run over towards the player. Let's give that a try. So hit play, get in, and as soon as I run into aggro range, he should just kind of run right towards me. There we go. Came right to where I was when I walked in range. And I notice he doesn't, follow me around or anything else. He's just, when I entered the trigger, got that call and went to the point where I entered. So if I enter over here, Let's see. Oh, I gotta exit. Oh, I can't even exit the trigger because this trigger moved. I need to move way, way, way over here. Let's pull these side by side so we can see it. And select that enemy. Just make sure it's really clear what I'm talking about here. So the enemy, where is he? Where's his? Oh, there it is. There's his sphere collider. So when I enter the collider right about there, he should run over to that point as well. Just gonna want to demonstrate this right there. So now he's gonna run to that point where I entered. And if I leave here and re-enter here, he's gonna run back to there. Okay, interesting stuff, right? So let's get back in here and start cleaning this up a little. All right, I'm gonna open this script up, and I think what I want to do is create just an enemy movement script. Just something simple that's responsible for setting these nav mesh agent destinations, getting the character to the right place, and playing the right animations. So I'm just going to create another script. Actually, let's just go back into the editor, and we'll just create an enemy movement. Now this script is going to listen for aggro. So when I get aggro, it's going to know who to target and who to run after. Right now we only have one character, but never know, we could add in the ability for enemies to go chase after something else. We may as well make it a little bit more robust. So if we want to have a bad guy go chase after something that we're trying to rescue, or a character that we're trying to protect or something, we can do that as well. We don't want to just hard code it to only go to the player. So I'm going to clean up that formatting and get rid of these two for now, and then we'll add in an awake. So let's do private void awake. And here I want to get my aggro detection script. So I'm going to say aggro detection equals get component aggro detection. And I'll just generate a field with that. Control period, remember, just generates or pops up dialog, hit enter, and it generates that field. Then I'll say aggro detection dot on aggro. And this doesn't exist yet. So I'm thinking I want to do an event here for on aggro, and then have it target something. So let's copy that, go into aggro detection, and right up here I'm going to add a public event action, and we need to add a using statement for system for action to work. And it's going to be of, let's do transform as the type. Again, keep it pretty versatile so we can go target just about anything. And I'll just call this on aggro. Again, just pasted it in. I'd already copied it from my clipboard. And then I'll assign an empty delegate as the default. Again, this is just so that I don't have to do a null check when I'm calling this event. So here, I'll just call on aggro and pass in player.transform. And we're good. Now, I'm going to leave this debug log, but I'm going to cut line 19. So just shift delete to cut it, and then hold shift, down arrow, hit delete without holding shift, and get rid of that extra line, and then remove all the using statements in that extra space. So now what will happen is we get aggro detection. If something gets aggro, it's a player. Right now that's the only thing that we look for. If a player aggros, we call our on aggro event, and anything that's listening will fire off. If nothing's listening, we have an empty delegate, so nothing bad happens. All right, I'm going to go into enemy movement, and now this exists, so I can just do plus equals and hit tab, and it's going to auto-generate that method for me. And the oh, I need to hit enter. The transform here is just going to be the target, so I'll just name that target. And then I'm going to paste in that copied nav mesh agent call. And here, instead of using player.transform, I'll just use target.position. Because remember, target is a transform. Now we do have this error again, because remember we need the using statement for unityengine.ai. So just hit control period again and enter to add that in. And again, clean up those using statements and get rid of that. So all we've done so far is switch over our movement into a different script. And the real reason for this is just to separate out the concerns completely. I want to have a single script that's just responsible for aggro detection. And if I want to expand on aggro detection, I can just add it into there. And I want my movement script to just be responsible for moving towards targets, stopping when it gets to them, that kind of stuff. In fact, in this case, we probably don't even need it to do the stopping, because we can go into our nav mesh agent right here. So I select the enemy, and we have a stopping distance here. So we can actually just set the stopping distance for how far out it's going to stop. And I think maybe, let's go with like 8 meters for now. He's going to get a little bit close, come up, and then eventually do some shooting. So I'm going to save this, and I need to add that other script. Let's add in our enemy movement. And I'm going to drag that up here so that the scripts are just kind of next to each other. Actually, I think I'm going to pull both of these up to here. Get them up by the health scripts. That way it's kind of separated out from the other components. And save. And then just play. Just want to make sure that he runs over towards me. There we go. We turn, get in there, and he turns and faces me and comes right towards me. Perfect. So the next thing I want to do is just make him animate. Since we have an enemy movement script already, we can pretty easily hook that up. Let's take a look at our player movement script one more time though. So in player movement, if you remember, we have an animator that we cache just from the get component and children call because our visual part is a child of the actual object. And then here, let's select that, and if you hit Shift F12, it'll find all the references, and you can see it right here. We've got the part where we get it, and then we can click right here to see the other part where we use it, which is just an update. And all we're doing is setting the float for the speed to our vertical. Now our enemy doesn't have a vertical, but there is something on the nav mesh agent that we can use. So I'm going to go into nav or enemy movement again, and let's cache our animator. So do animator and escape so we don't get that bad autocomplete equals get component in children of type animator, and again control period enter to generate that field, and then we just create an update. So just do private void update, and I'll just say animator dot set float speed, and then the value that I want to use is going to come from this nav mesh agent, but we don't have the nav mesh agent cached, so let's do that as well. I'm going to just cut this, and we'll go right up here, just go right above this one and say nav mesh agent, just like that, lowercase n of course, equals get component nav mesh agent, just pasted it right in, and then control period to generate that field as well. There we go. So now we're not getting the nav mesh agent every frame. In this case, when we're just doing it in the on aggro, didn't really matter because it was just kind of a one-off thing that wasn't happening a lot. But if we're going to do this every frame, I don't want to keep calling get component. So here, actually, let's create a float. I'm going to say float speed equals nav mesh agent dot speed, or not speed, it's velocity. Nav mesh agent dot velocity dot magnitude. Speed is the value that you set on there for how fast the character can go. So that's more of it's an adjustable thing for the inspector, so you can make a guy go fast or slow. Magnitude of the velocity is how fast he's actually moving. So here we'll just copy this, paste it right in, and add the semicolon, and we're good. And we could just drop this right into here, just like to separate it out into another variable, just to make it a little bit more obvious what it is. Actually, I'm going to call this current speed, so we know it's the actual speed the thing's moving, just naming it as explicitly as possible. So let's jump back over here, and I don't know if our enemy is set up yet. It's not. So our enemy, this Toon Soldier, doesn't have an animator controller on him. Now because he matches with our other character, it's from the same pack and same set, same guy, I think what we can do is just reuse that animator controller. So let's see, let's hit the search box and pick, I think we're using soldier controller. Let me double check. Where's this one located? Yep, that's in the demo. So soldier controller from our animation folder, and that'll probably just work. Let's give it a try. Hit play, and I'll run over here, get aggro. Yep, and he starts running. He does do some weird turning. He's like running and not turning right. That's something we'll fix later. It's just a little bit of extra animation controller work and navigation work so that he'll turn and run or be a little bit more realistic. But for now, he runs over to me, he animates, he stops when he gets there and starts idling. Oh, can I... Let's see if I can aggro him one more time. So just run out, run back in, there we go. And he comes over, he's chasing me and he's ready to shoot, right? Oh, what if I... Oh, okay. The last thing I want to add in here is a way to set this so that he doesn't just run to that target position. So right now, when he aggros, we set the destination. He stops at that point, at the aggro point. He doesn't really follow me around. So if I keep running away, he's not going to keep chasing after me. He's not really that aggro. So what I'm going to do is, instead of setting the destination here, I'm going to copy target. I'm just going to say this dot target equals target. And then I'll generate a field. And now we have a private transform named target. So here we're just taking in a target and we're setting a variable on our class instead of using this parameter. So that's what this keyword does. It's saying, hey, I know these variables have the same name. Use the one from the class. Don't use this one right here. So if you see this dot here, again, it's just to explicitly say that you want to reference the one in the class, not the parameter that has the same name. Just a little shortcut there to allow you to have parameters that have the same name. Now, sometimes it's not a great idea to have parameters that match the name of the thing in your class, but it can be unavoidable, and sometimes it's just named better, and it's better to keep it that way than adding something else there. So here we're setting a target, and now what I can do is just cut line 23, get rid of that space, and I can say if target is not equal to null, set destination to target.position in our update there, and let's add the braces around it. So now every time we go through update, if we don't have a target, we're just going to do pretty much nothing. We're going to set our speed to 0. Whatever. We probably don't even need to do that because it's going to be at 0 by default anyway. Actually, here, yeah, let's just cut that and put it right there. So now we're not even calling into the animator to update the speed until we've reached or made a target. Now let's hit play. Now he should gonna run towards me, follow, and then stop about 8 meters out. All right, let's see. There he goes. He's running. He's chasing. He's still chasing me. And I go over here, and he's still chasing. Perfect. So he'll just keep following me around. Now you may notice when I'm running around these things, like that, I can totally clip out my character and I can't see him. And that's the next thing that I want to fix up. So yeah, we're at 20-something minutes. Let's go through and fix that because it's actually a really easy thing to resolve. So what we can do to fix this, or let's save my scene again, is select the Cinemachine virtual camera, this CM-VCam1. Remember, that was created by going into Cinemachine and creating a new virtual camera. That's also what's allowing us to track the player and stay right behind them, have that semi-smooth movement that we've got. Now what we can do is go down to the extensions area where it says extensions, add extension. Just click on it, and there's a Cinemachine collider option. Now if you just add this, it's not going to do what you want. You need to also select the strategy right here and just change this to pull camera forward. Now, 0 code written, just add it in a thing and pick from a drop down and watch what happens. So here, I'm going to unselect the camera so we don't have the overlay. Now if I run over here, oh, did not work. Let's see, let's get behind something. Trying to get that to occlude again. There we go. So you see how it... I don't really like that though. So part of the issue that I'm having right now is just that the camera, the center point is right here. That's what we're looking at. So my character's still kind of getting occluded. But you'll see that when we go like this, it pops right over and the occlusion disappears. It's as soon as this point right here becomes occluded. Now I can adjust that too and make it a little smoother just by selecting that VCam, scrolling down and pulling up this damping value. So say I put it to like 0.5. Now when I turn, you'll see that it did that little pull in. So as soon as I got occluded, it pulls in the camera a little bit smoother, and I kind of like that effect. The speed here, I'm not sure if this is in seconds. It feels like it's in seconds. So if I go to like 0.25, it's quite a bit faster. And now at least I'm not getting occluded on my shooting area. We are still kind of occluding our character, which I don't like, but I think we'll fix that up later. It's pretty good. I can still see where I'm aiming, and I think it's going to be rare that I get into cases where I'm backed up and I can't see the character, but I can see this. So I think we're good there. I'm going to end this part right here, and then I think next time we'll go through and actually make the enemy shoot. Or, never mind. Let's just do it. Let's make the enemy shoot at the player. So let's add in another script here. I'm going to select the enemy, and we'll create a new C# script. Name it enemy. And I'm going to make this one just be responsible for shooting at the player. So the first thing I'm going to need is a reference to my aggro detection, because I want to know if I get aggro, and that's when I start shooting. So I'll just do a private void awake again, and cache my aggro detection. So just aggro detection with a lowercase a equals get component aggro detection, and generate the field with the control period again, and then clean up the formatting. It's Control K, Control D to clean that up. And let's see, we don't need start. We'll probably use an update, so I'll just leave that here. And now in awake, when we have the aggro detection, I'm just say aggro detection dot on aggro plus equals, and then hit tab. This is gonna say, hey, we've aggroed and we now have a target, so we'll name this target. And let's see, what do we want to do? I guess we just need to get the player, because our target here for actually attacking is going to be a little bit different than our target for aggro detection, because we need to make sure that the thing has a health component on it, right? We want to target something that has health if we're going to shoot. So I'm going to say health equals target dot get component health, and we only want to attack things that are, that have health. So we'll just say if health is not equal to null. How do I want to do this? I'll say health target equals health, and then I'll generate a field for that. So this health target is just going to be the thing that our enemy is going after, and it's the health component of that target. Now, to do an attack, we use our update. We'll just do private void update. And I usually follow a very similar pattern. First, I'll check to see if we should be attacking at all. So here we can just go if health target is not equal to null. That means we at least have a target. Then we want to check if we should attack. So we say if can attack, then attack. Just like that. This is almost always the way that I start these off. Just stub them out and then generate a method. Go up to here and generate another method. And I like to do them in that order just so can attack shows up above attack and I don't have to move them around. And then here in our can attack method, we'll just do a really basic timer. So I'll just say return attack timer greater than or equal to attack refresh rate. And neither one of these fields exists, so I'm going to generate them both. Generate field, and they're going to be wrong. It's going to generate them as ints, and I want them to both be floats. One thing you can do is hold down Alt, click, and drag to select both of them like that, and then just type in the word float, and just update them both at the same time. Now our attack refresh rate is actually going to be a serialized field, so I'm going to grab that line, cut it with Shift Delete, move it up to the top, and then add the serialized field attribute, because I want to be able to modify this in the inspector. And I'll give it a good default of maybe 1.5 seconds. So let's see, we've got an attack refresh rate and an attack timer, and here we're just returning back whether or not the attack timer is greater than or equal to the refresh rate. As it stands, it's never going to be true because our attack timer is always 0. So to fix that, we just go into update. Let's do it right here. We'll only update our timer if we have a target. And we'll just say attack timer plus equals time.delta time. This is just increment our attack timer after 1.5 seconds of having a target. Can attack will be true. Now, if can attack is true, so we'll get here, we'll go can attack is true, which means the timer's ready. We'll go into attack. The first thing we always want to do is just set attack timer back down to 0. That way, if something goes wrong, we have an error or a bug in our code in our attack, and there's an exception, we want to make sure that our attack timer is at least getting reset so it's not spamming an error every single frame and lagging us out while we're trying to debug and figure this out. So we've got the attack timer reset, and now we just need to do some damage. So we already have a health target, so just a health target dot take damage, and we can give it a damage amount. We could make this variable. I'm just going to pass in a 1 for now. So remember, our health component that we used on the enemy takes damage, and it reduces the current health. Current health drops low enough, they die, and our current implementation of dying is just disabling our game object. So now when I get into aggro range of the enemy, it should deal damage to me every 1.5 seconds, and then I die after however many points of damage. Now our player doesn't have a health component, so we need to add that on. So just go health, like that, add it on. We'll start at 5, just like the enemies, and then I move it up here just again to keep all the scripts together. Now I'll save, and I should be able to run into aggro range, have the guy start chasing after me, and shoot me. Oh, look at that. He's actually running in place right now. I'm going to fix that first. So the reason for that, remember we pulled the, let me just go back into enemy movement. We pulled this line up into the part where he has to have a target. So speed is sitting at the default value. Now I could pull this back out and change it, but the real reason that it's happening is if we go into this controller, so select the enemy, get in the animator controller. If you look at the parameters, the speed value is just set to 1. I can set it back to 0 and be good too. Although I may just pull that code back out just in case somebody changes it. I guess in a bigger project you may have to worry about people going in and messing with those things, so it wouldn't hurt to have that line in there, resetting it back to 0. Okay, but now he's good. I'm going to select my player, and I'm going to switch over to debug view in the inspector so we can see the current health. And now it's at 5. I aggro, 1.5 seconds, should pass. And is he not shooting? Okay, oh, you know what it is? The enemy script isn't on the enemy. So here we go, select the enemy, add the script, and he should still just, oh, he's not going to start shooting because he's not aggro. So let's add that. Stop playing, add it, drag it up here, and hit play one more time. And let's get that player selected so we can watch the health. Now he should attack. There we go. 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm disabled and dead. Perfect. Okay, so I think we're good now. In the next section, I'm not sure what we're going to dive into. Probably some more enemy stuff. Maybe get them animating and playing some gun sounds, some particles and other stuff. If you have specific requests, though, just drop them down in the comments below, and I'll try to work in the stuff that you want to see for this game into the next video or one of the videos after that. Anyway, thanks for watching again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends, and have a great day. Keep building games.